Hello and welcome to this instructional video on how to submit and pass your practical assessments without a gym. My name is Michael Dempster. You will probably have seen me before in a couple of webinars. I'm going to be here to guide you through the process that we have put in place at Premier Global NASM to ensure that you, our learners, can still pass your practical assessments in a timely and effective manner and get your certifications so that you are ready to get going in the industry as soon as this terrible pandemic is over and we are all getting back to normal. It's not the shortest video in the world, but it's worth digesting and taking into account everything that I go through today. What we're going to look at is the following elements. We're going to look at amendments to the assessment process for both level 2 and for level 3, because there are some small changes that we have made in order to help you get through your qualification and still be able to qualify. The first thing that we're going to look at is your program card, and we're going to show how you can amend that for home-based training. I know that some of you will already have done your program card. We aren't making too many changes so that you don't have to go back and rewrite the whole thing. So we're going to cover that off in the very first section that we look at in this video. We're then going to move on to how the practical submission is going to be modified. And there are quite substantial modifications, as I'm sure you would expect, in terms of how you submit that to us, what we will be looking at, and the structure to that video submission. Finally, I'm going to discuss what a professional discussion is, because we're going to be looking at professional discussions to cover all of the criteria that you cannot cover because you're not in the gym, so to speak. So what we're going to be looking at is probably resistance machines and cardiovascular machines primarily, how a professional discussion works, what you need to be preparing for your professional discussion, and when you would be doing those with your tutor, because they're done live with a tutor. So that's going to be the third element to this video. And then the final element that we're going to look at will be how level 3 works. Now level 3 is a little bit simpler, because there's a lot more freedom with level 3, so it makes life just a little bit easier for us and for you. So guys, feel free to pause, to fast forward, to rewind, to digest this video as much as you possibly can do. If you do have any questions, remember that you can always contact Student Success, you can contact your tutor, you can contact the customer services team as well. But hopefully this video will cover all of the questions that you could possibly want to ask. So, without further ado, let's crack on and start to have a look at the program card. Okay, so what we need to look at first of all is how your program card is going to need to be modified in order to take into account the changes for the assessment. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the same program card and session plan as you've always used. The reason for that is a lot of you have probably already done your session plan. So what we want to try and do is keep the disruption to a minimum. So if you haven't done your session plan already, then happy days. But if you have, then there's going to be a couple of small amendments required. And they are only small amendments. So if you have a look at my screen here, the amendments are going to come mainly around the warm-up, the free weights, not so much the body weight. The resistance machines are going to stay as they are. So what we're going to look at here is in the warm-up. So in the warm-up is going to be your first piece of CV equipment. So you may have written in there cross trainer, and you might have written in 5 minutes for the time, and you might go RPE 1 minute, RPE 2 minutes, RPE 3 minutes, etc., to take you up to the 4 minutes, as we talk about in the planning webinar. Yeah, so your gradual increase. What you're going to want to do underneath that is you're going to want to come down a couple of lines. Put a separator in if you wish to, up to you. And to do that, you just need to put an underline in a couple of times. You don't necessarily have to do that, but it makes it look a little bit neater sometimes. So if we come down, we'll put these in. So what you're then going to have to do is add in an amendment for home-based workouts. Okay, so what we're going to look at is how you would warm your client up at home without using any equipment, because some of you may not. One thing to bear in mind is that if you do actually have a piece of CV equipment at home, I know some of you might have exercise bikes or whatever at home, feel free to use those. That's absolutely fine. You can still teach through them. They are cool. So what you might write in here for your warm-up then is, you might go through and write, let's say, walking on the spot. And then you might go to jogging on the spot. And then you might go to something like high knee running. And that you might just leave it at that. That's probably enough for your warm-up, I would say. Okay, so in your timing, you're then going to write next to it 2 minutes, possibly, depending on the time. 2 minutes. Again, and then 1 minute. So what you can see there is that that adds up to 5 minutes. So you've got 2 minutes walking on the spot, 2 minutes jogging on the spot, 1 minute of high knee running. Okay, and you can then add in your RPE as well here, however that looks to you. So it might go RPE 1, then RPE 2 to 4 possibly, and then maybe an RPE of 5. Apologies for my use of caps there. Okay, so that will go in there. Then you're going to talk through your teaching points. The teaching points that you're going to use for this section talk about how you're going to coach that person to go through. So it's not necessarily how you would set them up, it's how you would coach them through the process of the warm-up. Okay, so 3 or 4 teaching points. It's talking about walking on the spot, then how you're going to progress that through. And your teaching points need to match that. So it gives us an idea of what we're going to see in your assessment. Okay, so that's your warm-up. You don't need to do this for the main CV component. So your main CV can stay as it is. Just put in whatever CV it is you're going to use. Likewise, for the fixed resistance machines, that is going to stay as it is. And we're going to talk about why that is when we talk about the practical assessment itself. So don't worry about that for the moment. Your resistance machines stay as they are. Okay. Where things start to change a little bit in terms of the resistance section is the free weights. Now you can do the free weights section at home. That's absolutely fine. And we're going to talk about how that looks in the practical session in a second. Okay, but what we want to do is if you have, and it's worth bearing in mind that this needs to be structured so that you can do it at home. Okay, so for example, if you have bench press here, you could potentially put that in there, then put a divider underneath it and put in chest press with water bottles / broom handle, maybe. Get creative with the things that you can use. Using a step. Now where I've said using a step is important because I know some of you will have some equipment at home, and if you've got equipment at home, feel free to use it. So if you have a step, then you could do bench press. Okay? But if you don't have anything that you can use as a bench, then you wouldn't be able to do bench press. So you would need to adapt that and use a different exercise. Okay? So what you might do in that case is take that out, swap your bench press for a barbell squat as the main exercise, and then plan the barbell squat. And then for your adaptation for home, say instead of using a barbell, I would use a broom handle. to create the movement. Yeah? So what we're seeing there is how you're going to modify these free weight exercises so that you can do them at home and so that your client can perform those. Yeah, so that's how a barbell squat would look. Some other things could be if you have a shoulder press, so let's say dumbbell shoulder press in your plan. You're going to come down, divide that, and then what you can say is use water bottles instead, did spell that right, of dumbbells. Okay. Now, your teaching points, in terms of a barbell squat done with a broom handle, as opposed to a barbell, your teaching points are going to be the same. So you don't necessarily need to change those teaching points up. Likewise, if you're using water bottles in place of dumbbells, then you don't need to change those teaching points up. Okay? So in your plan, that's what we need to see, is that you just section down and you show us how you are going to modify these exercises to be done at home. So that's for the free weights. So remember, it needs to be exercises that you can do at home, just using different pieces of equipment. Okay. Coming down, the body weight section is going to be the same. Yeah, so your body weight exercises are going to be the same. You don't need any equipment. Everybody's happy. That stays as it is. Then we come to our cool down. And guys, the cool down is going to be similar to your warm-up, really. Again, it's going to be the third cardiovascular element from your plan. So as we say, you need 3 different cardiovascular machines. So like treadmill, cross trainer, and bike. But if you don't have those, then you need to show us how you're going to amend that. So if you've got a bike in here and you don't have a bike, then ultimately what you could do is just use the same exercises as you've got in your warm-up, but put them in the opposite order. Yeah? So you're showing us decrease in intensity. So you could start with jogging you could start with high knees. Then you could go to jog on spot. Then you could go march on spot. Yeah, and then again coming down, you might go that you're going to have 1 minute, then 2 minutes, then 2 minutes. Okay? So that's how you would structure the cool down to show us how you are going to do your cool down at home. Coming down from there, you then have your warm-up stretches, which are going to be exactly the same because we don't use any equipment, and your cool-down stretches, which are going to be exactly the same. So the only modifications that we need to see really are in your cool-down CV to show us how you're going to apply that to your session, your free weight exercises to show us how you're going to modify them to suit, and then in your warm-up CV in order to show us how you're going to get the client ready for exercise. Everything else is pretty much staying exactly the same in terms of the paperwork that you submit. Okay? So in terms of your practical assessment filming and the recording that you need to submit for your assessment with us, what we need you to do is submit a video of you teaching somebody that you live with. Now, it doesn't matter if this person isn't the client that you did your client interview with. It needs to be somebody that you live with. Because of the social distancing regulations, guys, we do not want to be promoting the spread of this terrible virus any further than it has got to already. So you need to make sure that you are doing this with somebody from your household. So I'm going to run you through the requirements for the submission or the video submission to us. So you're going to introduce your session just as we talk about in webinar number 7, instructing exercise. So you're going to talk about emergency exits, you're going to talk about the power cue, you're going to talk about all the stuff that we tell you to talk about. Now, granted, this is likely to be in your own home, so instead of saying emergency exits, just say if there is an emergency, you know that the front door is at the front of the house and the back door is at the back of the house, or something like that, that kind of ticks those boxes for us. Review the PAR queue. Guys, one thing to remember is that if this is going to be a different client to the one you did your interview with, you need to submit another PAR queue for this person just to keep everything right. So just review the PAR queue. Talk about the session. So you're going to take them through a warm-up, main CV, or a main session and a cool-down. You're then going to get into the detail of the session. So your warm-up is going to be what your adapted warm-up from the session plan is. So if you're going from marching on the spot to jogging on the spot to high knees, just to increase that pulse rate, then you're going to do that. But remember to use the NASTY protocol. So talk them through what you expect of them. What we're really looking for is that the client understands what you require of them. So make sure that you're clear and concise in your teaching of that. Your dynamic stretches can be exactly as they are in the session plan. So fulfill the dynamic stretches as they are. There's going to be 3 of those required. You're then going to jump into your main kind of resistance portion, which is going to be free weights and body weight exercises. Now we need to see 3 free weight exercises modified as per what you have said in your session plan. So if you're going to do a squat with a broom handle, then that's absolutely fine, just do that. If you're going to do shoulder press with tins of beans, or you're going to do, I don't know, bicep curls with your dog, or whatever you're going to do, be creative with it. You need to put those in there. And guys, just remember you're teaching. We're looking for you to effectively teach this stuff. So use NASTY, name, area, silent demonstration, teaching points, and then your turn for the client to go through. So you're going to do 3 free weights. You're then going to do 2 body weight exercises. Those can be from your session plan. There's no amendment required for those. Go straight into your cool down. So whatever the cool down that you have specified within your session plan is, going to go into that, bring their pulse down, get them sort of down to that pre-exercise state. You're then going to go into your static stretches as per your session plan. Guys, the static stretches can stay pretty much exactly the same. And finally, do a session close down. I've left that off on this PowerPoint, so apologies for that. But your session close down again. Ask the client, did they enjoy the session? Get some feedback from them. Give them some feedback. Nice positive end to the session. Now, I know that some of you are going to be sitting there and going, oh, well, what can I use? And how do I do this? How do I set the area up? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to transfer you across to a quick video from Jade, who is going to explain how you can set this up for use with your client to get the most out of it.
Hey guys, so this video is to help you understand how to adapt your program cards and your exercises on your program cards for how to work at home. So obviously in the current situation we are finding ourselves in, we need to be able to still move you forward in your assessments, but be able to keep it that it's a safe and effective workout or safe and effective assessment for you. So first thing you need to think about is, as you can see, I'm in my lounge area. First thing you need to think about is making sure you've got enough space around you. So I've obviously spent a couple of minutes just now clearing down all the objects in my lounge. I've pushed the sofa out the way so that I can move around. It doesn't matter how big the space is, as long as you and your client can move around in that space safely and without knocking into anything. So what we're going to look at here, we're going to look at what objects we can use in order to recreate your free weights exercises, and we're also going to talk about body weight exercises as well. Think about health and safety when you're looking around. Make sure everything is in the right place and that there's no trip hazards, as you would as if you were in the gym. So first thing we're going to do is you need to check your cupboards. So check the cupboards for bottles, tins, anything like that. I've personally raided the drinks cabinet, okay? And you'll be able to see behind me, I have a range of different things lined up here, okay? So I'm going to just take you through what we're thinking about here and how we can do this. All right, so I'm just going to move this chair to the side because it's actually going to come in useful later. So the first thing, when I went into the cupboard, I wanted to find things that would be obvious, good examples of how to use dumbbells. So I have 2 Diet Coke cans, I have a medium set which is 2 Coke bottles, and then a larger set which is 2 tonic bottles. All of these are different sizes, which means that if my client wants a smaller weight, I've got the Diet Coke cans, or if they want a larger weight for maybe larger muscle groups, then they can use the tonic bottles or maybe even the Coke bottles. Okay, the other thing I've got is one of these. Okay, so this is a this is an old mop handle. Okay, as you can see, the mop is no longer with us. It is just quite simply a handle. Okay, now if you've got an opportunity to borrow someone's broom, you can just usually unclip the part from the broom and actually just use the handle itself. Okay, but this is going to stand in as our barbell. Okay, so when we're thinking about getting everything set up, so just make sure, as you can see, I've put things back to make sure they're out of the way. Just keep your area nice and clear, especially if you're working in a small area, because obviously we need to think about not tripping over things and making sure our client has the space to move. What I'm going to show you is how we are going to simulate the same type of exercises that you guys are going to use, but in your home. Okay, so like I say, nice clear area here. Okay, there's nothing here that's going to be tripping my client over or me over. Okay, now I'm going to just show you the part at the moment of what you have to do as the instructor. So you would still use the same format that we have been teaching you in from webinar number 7. So we're still looking at using the NASTY format, yeah, the NSATY. The reason we're still using this is because we're still doing the same thing. We're still actually working as a gym instructor, but we're trying to give you the adaptations that you need to use. Okay, so for the first exercise, I'm going to do the barbell squat. So I'm going to select my barbell. Okay, so the barbell itself is going to now be on the floor. Okay, so some of you might have been planning to use the rack, but actually we're going to have to use the floor. Okay, so I'm going to pop the barbell down onto the floor. I'm just going to move back so that you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so the barbell is now on the floor in front of me. Okay, so I'm going to have an imaginary client just stood here so that you guys can really understand what I'm trying to do and how we want you to teach. So today we're going to do the barbell squat, and we're going to be working this muscle here, which is the quadriceps, but also the glutes and also the hamstrings. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a quick demonstration and then talk you through my demonstration afterwards. So if you just want to move around me as you see fit, and so that I can to make sure you can see the technique. Okay, so it's going to deadlift the barbell from the floor. Okay, I'm going to put the barbell onto my shoulders, and this is your barbell squat. Okay, now all I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn side on, just so that you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so all I've done there is deadlifted the bar, put it onto my shoulders, set my feet just a little bit wider than my hip, and all I'm going to do now is squat back, okay, to about the height of a chair, then come back up. Make sure my abs stay nice and tight and the shoulders back and down. Okay, so okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to get you set up for that exercise. Okay, it's as simple as that. So you would do your usual nasty approach, and then you would get your client set up and get them doing the exercise themselves, okay? You would still do your instructor role. You will still maintain the level of understanding, show the teaching points that you need to show, and also think about the intensity. Obviously, the barbell on their back is not going to be the most intense exercise they've done, but in this case, we're going to think about how to work with it. A bit later on, I'm going to show you, there's going to be a separate video to how to teach a client, and I'm going to simulate the actual situation itself for you, okay? But that was the barbell squat. I'm just going to show you what we're going to do with dumbbells, and we're going to do the bicep curl, okay? So, I'm just going to put my barbell out the way. Okay, now I'm going to do the dumbbell bicep curl. So I'm going to just select 2 weights, which is going to be my Coke bottles, okay? So the Coke bottles are going to be on the floor. So again, deadlift your equipment. Make sure that when you're picking things up from the floor, you're doing it safely and that you're teaching your client to as well. So I'm going to teach you again how to use Nasty, how to implement it, and you're going to pretend like I've got a client stood in front of me, okay? So today we're going to do the dumbbell bicep curl, and we're going to be working this muscle here, which is the bicep. It's going to show you a quick demonstration, and then from there, you can just move around me and check that you can see what I'm doing, okay? So just deadlifting the equipment from the floor, taking a good grip on the bottles, okay, turning the palms to face forward. This is your bicep curl. Okay, so I'm going to turn side on so you can see what I'm doing. Feel free to move around me. Okay, so all I'm doing, turn the palms forward, making sure the shoulders and the spine is in neutral, making sure your abdominals are nice and tight, bring the arms and hands up to the shoulder height and back down again. Keeping with a good rhythm of about 2-2 tempo and good control in both phases. Okay? All right, let's get you set up. Deadlift to the floor again. If you just want to step around the dumbbells, and when you're ready, deadlift your dumbbells. Okay, so hopefully that makes good sense to you guys. Obviously, you probably recognise all of those different things that you've been thinking about from webinar number 7, but you can see it is quite simply, we're doing the same thing, but in the house, okay? Okay, so let's talk about body weight exercises. I've got a few tips for this one, okay? So, let's get to this. Okay, so when you're doing body weight exercises, you might have chosen something like the abdominal crunch, the dorsal raise, the squat, the lunge, the press up. Something like a pull-up might be a little bit more challenging unless you've got a pull-up bar that you can put up in a frame somewhere. But to be honest with you, just for safety's sake, maybe reconsider that one, okay? Just unless it's in situ already and you've already got your own sort of chin-up bar, then just maybe reconsider that one, okay? So what I need to do is I need to angle the camera down a little bit so that you can see the floor, okay? So one of the tips that I have is, obviously, you're going to need some form of mat or some form of towel, okay? I recommend a bath mat, okay? The reason I recommend a bath mat is because A, they're quite a good size, but also they have this non-slip surface on the back. So if your client is putting their hands on it or putting their knees on it, it's not going to slip backwards, okay? So it's, especially on a floor like this, where it's a wooden floor. So a bath mat is something I recommend, okay? So again, you would set yourself up exactly how you did last time. You would think about the same exercise, you would do Nasty, you would still do the demonstration, you'd still give the explanation. So please bear that in mind, but think about the different things that you need to do. Also think about the camera angle when you're filming or when someone else is filming you, or like me, you've set it up that someone else can see. So the camera's in the right place. Please think about the camera angle because we need to be able to see you, okay? So make sure that we can see you. I think that was it for body weight exercises. I think they're pretty straightforward and there's something you can do at home anyway, okay? The last thing is you can see this chair I've put here. So the reason I've put a chair here is because if in your plan you've decided to use something like a, let's say a seated shoulder press, you're going to need something that will be like a bench. So just grab a chair from everyday home, okay? just grab a chair from Everyday Home. It might be that you need to turn your sofa round and you're going to have your client sat on the edge of the sofa, okay? Now, really important to remember, if you are going to have them sat on the chair, if it's a chair like this is absolutely fine. You can have them sat on a chair. If you're going to have them sat on a sofa, please make sure they're not sat on the sofa. Make sure they're sat on the edge of the sofa. They're still able to keep their posture. They're still able to maintain a good level of postural awareness. Okay. Hopefully that is everything covered for free weights and for body weight at this point. Please remember to use Nasty. Please remember to clear the space around you so that your client is nice and safe. Think about what you're using as a mat, and think about what you're using as equipment for free weights and for your barbells. Okay.
Okay, so once you have filmed your video submission, covering all of the elements that you can actually do at home, we are then going to do a thing called a professional discussion. The professional discussion is there to cover all of the criteria that you could not meet because you didn't necessarily have the equipment for it. The professional discussion will be done live with a tutor and carried out via an online link. We're probably going to use a GoToMeeting for this because it can then be recorded and it can be uploaded to your file. Okay. Now you need to prepare for your professional discussion. Now what we're going to need to see on your professional discussion is 3 resistance machines and 2 cardiovascular machines explained by yourselves. Okay. Now, as tutors, we can't lead you through this process. So what you need to do is you need to prepare for your professional discussion, and we're using the following acronym for that. We call it EPTA, and it's going to be the way that you talk your way through how you would teach each exercise. Now, whether that's cardiovascular or whether that's resistance machines. So you're going to need to do a total of 5 of these sections. 1 for each resistance machine, 1 for each cardiovascular machine. So just running through this very quickly. The first thing that you're going to talk about is the exercise itself. Now, I'm going to use something simple, but you may be using, say, the shoulder press machine or something, or the treadmill. I'm going to use a barbell curl just because it's easy for this process. So the first thing you're going to do is name the exercise. This is a barbell curl. Then you're going to move on and name the prime mover muscles. So you may write down, and you can do this in bullet points if you wish, and you can have this with you for the discussion. The muscles worked are the biceps brachii and the brachialis, which are on the front of the upper arm. We're then going to talk about the technique of the exercise. So with an underhand grip that is hip width, safely lift the bar from the floor, keeping elbows tucked into the sides of the body, starting with the arms lengthened and the elbow slightly bent. Curl the bar to the top of the chest, maintaining good posture throughout, then return to the start position. Then the next section is how you would adapt or modify that. So you may say something like, this exercise can be made harder by using dumbbells and performing hammer curls with knuckles facing away from the body, or made easier by using a resistance machine or a lighter weight. So those are the 4 elements that you need to have for each exercise. So take the time to write them out. Now you can't read from a script, unfortunately. But what you can have is a list of the exercises, and hopefully you will have memorized all of this information so that you can then talk your way through it. Pretty much in the same way as you would do with a client. Yeah? The only difference is going to be that you don't have the machine and you don't have the client there. So I know that in webinar number 7 we talk about Nasty, where we talk about the name, the area, the muscle group. It's kind of like Nasty, but without the silent demonstration or the your turn bit. Yeah. So name the exercise, name the prime mover, talk about the technique, talk about any adaptations and modifications. Now, what may happen during the professional discussion is that your tutor may ask you questions. So they may say, what happens if this machine is being used? Yeah. Just to help clarify different things. So don't be taken aback if you get questioned throughout it. Okay? And that will be done live with your tutor. Now, once we have all of that, so the amended session plan, the video assessment of all of the things that you can do at home, and then the professional discussion, which is going to cover off the 2 cardiovascular machines that you can't do at home, and the 3 resistance machines that you can't do at home as well. Once you've done that, then your practical assessment element for level 2 will be complete, and you can pass your level 2. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to move on and talk about level 3 and how the level 3 assessment looks and is structured. So if you are just doing level 2, then feel free to stop this video now and crack on with your assessment for level 2. If you're doing level 3, then the next bit is important for you. And it's not going to take too long because level 3, as I said earlier, is a little bit easier to modify than level 2. So fortunately enough, the level 3 practical is actually a lot more straightforward to do in these crazy times that we are living in at the moment. There's a few things to bear in mind with your level 3 practical though. As I discussed in the level 2 practical, it needs to be done with somebody that you live with. Yeah, remember social distancing, really important, guys. Stay safe, stay home, stay healthy. So make sure that you're doing this with somebody that you live with. Again, it doesn't need to be the client that you've chosen. All you need to do is fill out a PAR-Q to make sure that that person is okay to exercise. Now, for the actual session itself, it needs to be filmed in one continuous film with both you and the client in the video at all times. This should hopefully be a little bit easier to do at home because if you're doing it in your front room, you can just set the camera up and make sure that both of you are in shot at all times. Okay. Now, as you go through your level 3 video, what you need to think about is doing it in the same way as you would do if you were going to submit it from the gym. So you're going to introduce the session. So that means you're going to talk about what you're doing in the session, why you have chosen the advanced methods that you have, and how they are going to benefit your client. So looking at the features and the benefits of each method. That's really important at level 3. Not so much at level 2 because level 2 is more about teaching exercise. At level 3, we really need you to talk about why you are doing things. You're then going to complete all of the methods or the advanced methods that you can realistically do at home. Okay. Now, if there are some that you cannot do, so if you've already submitted your case study and you've had it back from your tutor with a selection of the advanced methods, if there's some, so potentially things like drop sets may be difficult to do at home because you need to look at the difference in loading. Like, for example, if you're going to use water bottles, it's quite difficult to do a drop set because a water bottle is a water bottle, unless you're going to like do maybe 3 sets with full water bottles and then maybe do one drop set where you empty half the water out and then another drop set where you empty another half out. Like, that could potentially do it, but it's just a little bit too fiddly. So when we're looking for things within the practical, it's going to be methods that you can achieve at home. So things like supersets, tri-sets, giant sets, multi-set training, and things of those nature. So maybe partial reps. Things like forced reps and negative training, pyramid training, and drop sets might not be that appropriate in terms of the resistance element. So have a look at what your tutor has asked. If you don't think that you can do it at home, then drop your tutor a message and just ask if there's something else that you can do, and they'll be able to let you know from there. Remember that if they're in your program, there's nothing that you can do. We will then be able to cover that off with a professional discussion, and I'm going to talk about the professional discussion for level 3 in a second. Okay? In terms of the cardiovascular methods, you can actually do most of the cardiovascular methods at home. So continuous training, you could get somebody doing step-ups onto your steps, onto your stairs. Like you could have them going up and down the stairs at the same amount of time. So if it takes them, I don't know, 10 seconds to get up and 10 seconds to get down the stairs, just make sure that they're having the same rhythm going up and down, and that would be continuous training. If you wanted to look at some form of interval training, you could do that in a body weight format. So like maybe some Tabata training, they could do some burpees and then rest, and then some more burpees and then rest. So like Tabata training, 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off. You could potentially do that. And for fartlek training, you could just get them running around the garden and shout at them to go faster and go slower. So the cardiovascular methods you should be able to do without using cardiovascular machines. We don't need those for level 3 really. That's more of a level 2 thing. So that is the requirements for the level 3 practical. Remember guys that you need to film it in one continuous film. The thing to think about that though is when you're submitting it, if you can't submit it as one continuous film, it is okay to edit it a little bit to make it smaller so that it does fit and you can submit that. But you will need to fill out a form just to explain why you've done that. But it should be done, and it should be obvious that you have filmed it in one continuous video. So those are the guidelines for the level 3 practical. What we're going to do now is we're going to move on and just have a quick chat about the level 3 professional discussion, and then we're going to wrap up this video because I'm sure that you're sat there itching to get on with your practical assessments. So once you have recorded your level 3 video, anything that you cannot fit into your level 3 video will be carried out as a professional discussion with your tutor in the same way as the level 2 ones have been as well. The only difference is going to be the explanation that you need to provide will be slightly different. Ultimately, the level 3 teaching points are different to level 2 teaching points anyway, so it just reflects that. So the acronym that we're using for level 3 is called TACI, or TACI acronym. The first thing you're going to do is explain the training technique that you're using. So for this example, we're talking about a superset. So all you're going to do is explain that superset. You're going to say, we are going to do a superset, which is 2 exercises performed together with no rest. Either the same or opposing muscle groups. And in this example, we've said that it's going to be the same muscle group. The A stands for appropriate workload. So it says we're going to perform 10 reps of a barbell curl using the easy bar, which weighs 15 kilos. Followed straight after by a dumbbell hammer curl for another 10 reps using 10 kilo dumbbells. Once both of these are complete, we will rest for 90 seconds before repeating again. Okay? So you're going to talk through what the workload is and the setup for the advanced method. You're then going to put the coaching points in. So the barbell curl, you're going to talk about your teaching points basically in the same way as you would do for level 2. So you would explain the barbell curl. I'm not going to read this all out to you. You can see it on your screen quite well there. So barbell curl with an underhand grip, hip width apart. You're going to go through the teaching points for that. And similarly with the hammer curl, you're going to go through the teaching points. And then finally what you will do is explain to your tutor how you would monitor intensity for either of those and through the whole method. So the first thing that you'll need to do when preparing for your professional discussion is go through these sections for any of the methods that you could not submit through your video assessment, and then learn them off by heart. Again, you can't have a full script in front of you, just like in level 2. You can't just have it written out and read from a script because that doesn't show that you understand it. So you need to learn these points and then put the points across. And just like in the level 2 professional discussions, your tutor as you go through may ask you some questions as they go. But the majority of the discussion will be your tutor saying, okay, the next method that you have chosen is the superset. Please explain that to me. Okay. And again, once the video for level 3 has been passed, once your professional discussion has been signed off by your tutor, then you've passed your level 3 practical, and ultimately you are now a fully qualified personal trainer. Great stuff. Okay guys, we have reached the end of this video. Thank you for paying attention and watching throughout. I hope that you found it to be useful, and I hope it gives you the structure and the background to what you need to do in order to get through those practical assessments. Guys, it's a tough time for everybody out there at the moment. I can understand that it's probably quite stressful for you, thinking that you're not going to be able to get these assessments done, but we have a way around it for you. If you do have any questions about anything that's gone through in this video, again, as I said at the start, please feel free to get in touch with Student Success, with your course tutor, or with the customer services team, and we can give you a little bit of guidance around what the requirements are. But if you watch and implement everything that we've talked about in this video, then you will be pretty well set up. Guys, that's it for me. So the last thing that I want to just say is make sure that you stay safe, stay healthy, stay inside, and stay away from people. Thank you guys. See you later.